I'm really pleased to have Dr. Dan Kaufmann on the podcast today. He is a research assistant professor at the University of Utah's Department of Medicine, Division of Rheumatology. He holds a PhD in both medicinal chemistry and pharmaceutics from the University of Jerusalem and has spent years in drug research, including developing a patented compound showing early promise in epilepsy, neuropathic pain, and migraine prevention. And what makes his work especially interesting to us is that he has now shifted focus. And in recent years, he's been exploring how hormones, stress, and emotions influence migraine. He's broadened that into musculoskeletal pain, fatigue, and has a growing interest in the emotional aspects of chronic pain. Driven by a desire to integrate both pharmacological and physiological approaches to pain management, he's also on track to becoming a licensed clinical mental health counselor, as if he's not doing enough, right? This man is amazing. So along the way, he's trained in cognitive behavioral, hypnosis, NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, biofeedback, autogenic training, the unified protocol, and emotional awareness and expression therapy. And Dr. Kaufman recently published results of a preliminary study looking at the effects of EAET, specifically on migraine, investigating the role trauma plays in the emotional experience of migraine sufferers. His long-term goal is to combine his expertise in pharmacology, physiology, and human behavior to develop more complete, innovative treatment approaches for various pain conditions, including migraine and rheumatology-related pain. So without further ado, I am pleased to be joined by Dr. Dan Kaufman. I am so thrilled to have you here with us. I first heard your results out in Boulder, actually at the ATNS conference. So ATNS stands for Association for the Treatment of Neuroplastic Symptoms, for anybody that doesn't know. And you recently spoke about that again at the EAET training that I was in with Dr. Mark Lumley and Dr. Howard Schubner. And I just thought this is something that obviously the migraine community needs to hear more of. I've got a platform. Hopefully, we can help spread this information and get the information out that, well, spoiler alert, but that there is promise for EAET in migraine reduction. But before we get into the study, I want to talk about the study design, about the results, obviously, all these good things. I want to know a little bit more about you as far as why migraine. I mean, you have had an interesting path, and it seems like there's a touch point in migraine often. So I was just curious why that came about and also why EAET in migraine. Was that associated with your interest or something else or
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Karen, for inviting me, and I'm very thrilled to be here and to be interviewed. And hopefully, what we're talking about is actually going to help people who are listening to us. Yeah, I would have to agree. My career has been pretty windy for, I think, for good reasons. I think that I started my career as a basic scientist. I've always been fascinated by science, the hardcore scientist, mathematics, physics, biology, chemistry. That was always my love. But I had another important love, and that's the love for people. And I remember very early on in my career that I really wanted my research to be relevant for people, to really touch people's lives. And I remember having this idea of going to a supermarket and meeting whoever that is and telling them about what I do scientifically and have it be interesting for them.
Hmm.
So over the course of my academic career, I really tried that my research would focus on clinical presentations of diseases that affect as many people as possible. Now, I was always intrigued by pain, by chronic pain. I think that pain is a very interesting phenomena which informs who we are. I don't think there's anybody in this life that hasn't experienced some form of pain. And I wanted to get a much better understanding of that phenomena that touches everyone. So my PhD was focused on neuropathic pain and epilepsy and mostly drug development. And as I continued on, I remember, I think it was about 15 or 14 years ago, I met my former advisor, who is a brilliant neurologist here at University of Utah. And he's a migraine neurologist, and he introduced me to migraine. I have to say it was love at first sight. I was hooked because I think that first I was intrigued by the fact that it affected so many of the world's population. Usually
Right.
the percentages are between 15 to 18%. Some reports say 20%. Women are 3 times more prone to migraine than men, especially after puberty, before menopause. There is a lot of interesting things to me about that phenomenon that is called
Mm-hmm.
migraine. And mostly I was intrigued by the fact that there was not a lot of medications. Like I came from the epilepsy field, and there was not a lot of medications. There was not, at that point, there was not a lot of research, and I was really fascinated. And I remember that when we started, what interests me was, the big question, what causes migraine? What triggers migraine? Now, this is a question that I don't have, that does not have one simple answer. It has multiple, very complex answers. But I remember at that time, we were focused on what we thought were the main reported migraine triggers, which was hormonal fluctuations. That's why migraine is more prevalent in women than men, and stress, which was kind of a little amorphous concept, like
Mm-hmm.
stress. What exactly does that mean? As I continued to work as a basic scientist, well, I was doing my lab work, but I was a bit curious, somewhat frustrated because I was not a clinician. I didn't see people living with migraine, and I thought I'm missing out. And I thought I was like cooped up in a lab trying to understand a phenomena that is so relevant to people, yet I wasn't seeing any people with migraine. I thought I was pretty disconnected. Long story short, over the years, I collaborated with several psychologists, and we started doing psychoeducation and teaching skills like all the skills that were recommended, progressive muscle relaxation and mindfulness, and a lot of other kind of stress reducing treatments. And I still remember that even though our participants were very grateful and happy about the tools, but I was still a scientist and I wanted to see, do I see something? Do I see results? So I checked before and after looking at migraine frequency, and I didn't see much changes. Now, this was with the population that we work with. Some of them had debilitating and chronic migraines. And I was frustrated because I said, well, here I am. I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to understand this thing called migraine, yet it doesn't really seem that I'm doing that I'm giving tools creating meaningful changes.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I was noticing at that time was that majority of the people who came to us reported all sorts of adverse life events, all sorts of trauma that was very much affecting them. And I was curious in how come so many of those people that come to us are reporting significant trauma. And I want to emphasize that does not mean because people are watching us, that does not mean that every person with migraine necessarily has a trauma or adverse life events. This was our experience that got me curious.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to think, well, is it possible that there's something there if maybe we'd work on the trauma or the adverse life events or all the difficulties that people reported, would that have a effect on migraine? And I remember watching the documentary This Might Hurt by Howard Chubin, and that was kind of a eureka moment for me because here I was seeing people working with chronic pain with this new intervention, and they were talking about adverse life events and emotions that were avoided. And I said, okay, I need to talk to these people. They are thinking exactly like I do.
Mm-hmm.
That got me. very curious about EAET, emotional awareness and expression therapy. I think pretty immediately I contacted them. At that point, I also was a guest editor in a special journal. So I wanted them involved. And we started
Hmm.
discussing, and when I learned, when I took the training in EAET, it was clear. I said, okay, I want to test this in people with migraine, and that's
Hmm.
how things came about. And I think another important thing is that as I looked at EAT, and mind you, I was looking backward at my career of sitting in a lab, and my goal was to find mechanism to block the activation of
Mm.
or we also worked on cortical spreading depression. And here I was with a bit of a different paradigm that indicated that it may be that the pain is a result of the body feeling in danger. And I thought it was interesting to
Hmm.
look at that perspective, which I didn't think beforehand. So that was a
Yeah,
long,
no, it's fascinating about what shifted you. You were in this, you developed a compound. I mean, you showed promise in, or is showing promise in migraine prevention. So it's like going from that pharmaceutical side of it and the drug development to this side was just so interesting of a shift for me because it's a radical difference. And I come from pharma, so I feel like that as well. I was part of my story is that I was in this company that produced the first CGRP injectable
oh,
that came out, Aimovig. I was part of a trial, actually, funny enough, a real world evidence one here in Switzerland. So the whole thing is fascinating and how you come to it. And of course, I came to my work because having 34 years of chronic migraine and then hearing somebody like Dr. Schubner, that's exactly what happened to me. I heard a podcast, I heard emotions, I heard all these different things. And it was like, what are they talking about? I mean, you had the revelation, oh, this, they're thinking how I am. I had the exact opposite. Like, what? No, I have an incurable disease. I've been told it's my genetics. I am faulty to the core, and there's no getting out of this. So yeah, it's really interesting. But then once you learn of it, it's just it takes off from there and you just can't not see it and you can't not explore it after that, right?
true,
So
but on that grounds, I also, because, over the years, I worked with a lot of people with migraine, and it's always people come with a question. So it's not genetics, it's not physiological, it's emotional. And I really want to emphasize that this is not what we're saying. Human beings are complex individuals. It's never either or. We have a complex set of factors contributing to this complex disorder called migraines. It's not that if we've identified some emotional factors, it negates any physiological aspects. This is not what we're saying. This, at least not, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I believe. I want to emphasize because I think that a lot of people with migraine are with this notion that they have been told many times by doctors, by professionals, that it's all in your head and you're imagining it, it's not real. This is not what we're
mhm.
saying. I really can't emphasize it enough, and I emphasize it in my courses as well. Migraine is a real phenomena with physiological basis. I've researched that in the lab. The physiology of migraine is known, it's researched. It's not that it doesn't exist. We just believe that on top of the physiology, there might be additional factors which are more emotional in nature. I believe that as human beings, we are both. We are physiological, we have a physiology and we have the emotional aspect. When we're angry, it will affect our physiology. We get higher heart rate, maybe blood pressure, higher respiration. So one
Cortisol, yeah.
affects the other. It doesn't mean that if there's an intervention that is necessarily working on the emotional aspect, that negates the drugs or the physiology. No, this is not what we're
Hmm.
saying. It is a combination of both.
Well, kind of what you're saying reminds me of this mind body connection, right? I
Yeah,
mean, the
correct.
physiology and the
Yeah.
emotional side, and it's all connected. It is one, and this is part of the new understanding, I guess, of when you start looking at it like that, that it's all connected in our thoughts and our beliefs and the fear around the pain. And, we're talking about emotions in this because we're talking about a specific therapy, but
Correct.
going underneath the stress and all the different aspects of stress from back into childhood to life experiences to all the things you don't even realize it's happening in the unconscious mind and the personality traits. I mean, I was, as my niece put it, wound tight. She used to say, "You are just so wound tight." And that was like an unraveling of that, but that keeps you in tension. That keeps the physiology, as you're saying, in high alert, hypervigilance, all these other things. So yeah, it's all connected and it makes sense. But I'm glad that you mentioned that and that it's not one or the other, black and white. And I do think that a lot of this, we kind of put things in buckets now, and it is very intertwined. And, all right,
And
I want to get into the study results. So for
and I
EAET,
talk a
let's
lot, as you can see. So
no, I love it. I'll have you on for hours and hours. So we need to um, let's talk about, first of all, what EAET is, because there are some people that are listening that have no idea what we're even talking about. I have a definition from the training materials from EAT. Do you want me to just read that, or and then you can maybe like just add on to, yeah, what that is? Maybe that's the.
go ahead. Go ahead.
So it's developed by Dr. Mark Lumley and Dr. Howard Schubner. EAT views chronic pain as a danger signal generated by the brain and the nervous system, often outside of our conscious awareness. For many, that danger signal is kept running by unresolved emotional experiences that were never fully processed or expressed. EAET, and that stands for Emotional Awareness and Expression Therapy, helps people feel, process, and express what's been held in. And when the brain gets the message that it's safe, the pain can reduce and for some resolve entirely. We're going to go into the study design and what the participants experienced and all that kind of thing. What I first want to know is that's the explanation of it. But as I'm reading this, I'm a listener and I'm thinking, yeah, feeling, processing, and expressing my emotions. Yeah, I do that in journaling every day. It's the same
Mhm.
thing, right? Or, yeah, I've been in talk therapy for 10 years. I'm doing EAT, right? So, can you just kind of touch on how that's different, what we're talking about
Sure.
here?
Sure. And these are great points. And I want to emphasize first, EAT is a new treatment, but it borrowed its
Mm.
theoretical underpinning, its principles from many other disciplines, such as intensive short-term dynamic psychotherapy, assertiveness training, a little bit of CBT, but really it's very different from CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. So, in essence, how I conceptualize EAT is first with the idea that as we go through life, we accumulate experiences. And let's be honest, I don't know anybody that had a perfect life with no issues. We do
No.
go through some adversities, more or less. Those adversities affect us because we are creatures that learn to adapt to the environment that we live in. So those experiences leave their impression in the form of emotions, in the form of stress, in the forms of memories. And usually those memories don't disappear or go away just because the event ended. And that's pretty much what the focus is on, especially when those experiences happened in developmentally critical period, like childhood, like early ages, when the nervous system is still developing. And we know that trauma or adverse childhood events in developmentally sensitive periods do leave their mark later on in life. And so EAET, first of all, you are right. The premise is that the brain is not just a passive conduit of sending information or creating danger signals and making them pain. It can create pain if it is under the impression that there is an actual potential danger, regardless of necessarily the tissue damage. And that's science because there are many experiments that indicated that regardless of the actual activation of the nerve cells that transmit nociceptive information or danger information that eventually leads to pain, eventually the experience of pain is influenced by many different factors. So, in essence, the brain can create a very painful signals, not necessarily corresponding to the level of activation of the nerve cells leading to that response. So that's number one. The brain is very active in that process. Number two, the brain has been shaped by our life experiences, especially those aversive experiences, which left their mark. What the concept of EAET is that a lot of those experiences are avoided, create emotions and needs that are avoided. And that, in my opinion, that's the core thing about EAET, that it's not just expressing our emotions in writing. A lot of times we are not aware of the things that happen to us and the emotions that we're still carrying, the wounds that we're still carrying, maybe attachment wounds, emotions that we're still carrying that we're not even aware of, needs that we have never learned to experience or express. And that's where EAT comes to play because it does help us identify avoidances, defenses, things that we do to actively, deliberately or unconsciously block those basic needs and emotions. That's where the treatment comes to play. So I agree that, of course, if I'm already aware that so and so did something and I'm angry, I can journal that. There's a lot of, especially with the people that I worked, most of the time were unaware
Mhm.
of a lot of those emotions created by adverse experiences. And even when we are aware, we're going to keep avoiding those emotions because they're threatening to us. They're aversive, they're painful. We may feel guilty. So maybe I feel anger towards my parents, but in the same time, I feel very guilty. So I don't want to experience that anger.
Mhm.
Therapy helps us relieve that internal conflict that might fuel, to say it differently, the result of the danger signal being expressed as pain. That is the essence of the treatment. So I agree, journaling is effective. The treatment helps us identify defenses and avoidances and help us better cope with them. Another point is that I have a lot of people that did a lot of journaling, but when they found themselves doing experiential work in treatment, meaning imagining, like we have in Gestalt empty chair technique, when we imagine a certain person, we have some anger, sadness, whatever that is. And when we hear ourselves express the words and the anger, when we get into the emotions in our body and fully express the emotion out, people find it to be much different experience than just filtering that via our cognitive abilities and just writing it down. So that is one of the things that I think EAT brings to the forefront. I also want to emphasize EAT does not focus on reliving memories, processing cognitively the memories, what happened, what do you think about what happened. It's not about the cognitive processing. It is about the accessing of all of those needs, emotions that have been avoided or suppressed, being aware of them again and learning to express and experience them in a healthy way, which is that is the main difference that I think from other trauma work that is my, I'm not saying that other trauma work does not focus on emotions, but it might be that the processing is more cognitively. So.
Right. And I think that's what the point is with, I had a lot of just talk therapy and a lot of my clients have, and it can get you so far. But this felt sensation and bringing it up and out and expressed, and it just does something completely different. Yeah, I absolutely agree with
And
that.
there's a difference when you talk about something versus experiencing something in real time.
Right, right, right. So with that said, okay, we've got the basis of what it is that you're you're trying out in this study, this preliminary study. Can you tell us about the study design and how this was set up, how many people, how long it took, this kind of thing?
Yeah. So I just want to emphasize the study was still preliminary. It took a long time, but it was still preliminary study. We did not know how people with migraine are even going to respond to E8. We had no data whatsoever. So
And
we wanted to,
can
yeah,
I
go
stop
ahead.
you real quick and just explain that a preliminary study is essentially that we're trying to test out with a small group of people
Yeah.
if this even works. Is this, and that's why you're saying we didn't know, there was no data behind this. So what typically happens, and this happens also with clinical trials with medications, is that you try it with a small group, and then if it shows efficacy, if this method works, then you start going into larger groups. And so, yeah, I just wanted to explain that.
Even before that, because before efficacy, because efficacy you need to do on a larger number of people before identifying whether it's effective or not. We want to even evaluate whether it's feasible. We were
Mm,
delivering that via Zoom online. We didn't know how safe that is, whether there are going to be maybe adverse events. We're dealing with sensitive material, adverse life events, memories, emotions. We didn't know how participants are going to respond to that. We didn't know if delivering that via Zoom platform online would be helpful, achievable. So we wanted to first check that, how feasible that is, how acceptable, how are we going to see any side effects? So that was
mhm.
the main aspect of that study. But we also, importantly, we wanted to get some idea about, speaking in lay terms. I mean, but does it work? Does it do
Right.
anything? And again, we can't talk about efficacy with such a small trial. However, so we enrolled 30 participants in the study. Before the actual study, I just have to make a comment. There were four very, very brave women that I worked with before that, as I knew that I'm going to do the study, I wanted to pilot test that was uncontrolled, very, very small pilot of just four individuals. So these four people living with migraine, they were so motivated and I was so frustrated because I saw how motivated they were and I wasn't able to help them. So I asked them if they were willing to participate in the study. So we first did that on those four women, which, they're still very dear to me. And then when we saw that we can deliver this protocol and it does produce benefit, we've engaged in a randomized controlled trial where we enrolled 30 participants. We've randomized them into a treatment group and a waitlist control. So the treatment group was 8 weekly sessions via a small group of people, maximum 5 participants per group. Each session was 2 hours long. It was delivered via Zoom so that people can enjoy the treatment from the comfort of their home, and they are coming from all sorts of places in the country. And the wait list, we're supposed to wait those 8 sessions, and we asked them to fill out headache diary, 1 month headache diary electronically, and other questionnaires evaluating quality of life, depression, anxiety, overall mood, allodynia, which is the amplification of pain. It's related to central sensitization, but I don't
Mhm.
want to use too
Yeah,
much
your
of a
hair hurts when you
professional
brush your hair
professional
or to the
jargon.
touch. Yeah,
Correct.
I have this. Yeah.
Yeah, people with
Um,
migraine, when they are putting glasses or brushing their hair or putting their hair on a pillow, even though it's not an aversive or painful stimulus, they do feel pain. That's a term called allodynia. And so we evaluated that before and after. And when I designed that study, I I started to feel bad about the people who are waitlisted because here you are, you really want to get help and you're enrolling into a study, and all of a sudden you're saying, okay, you're just a control, and after you're done with the control period, it's nice knowing you and goodbye. So I didn't want to do that. So what we've also did is that all of those participants who were waitlist control did get the opportunity to
oh,
receive the treatment once the waitlist control is over and all the questionnaires were filled out. That also allowed us to have kind of like an internal control to see whether there's any change during their waitlist and then what happens when they do get the treatment.
interesting. Okay. I
So
didn't realize you did that.
yeah,
Very cool.
we've done that. Not all the wait lists opt out to receive the treatment. So we had 30 participants, 15 got the treatment. 15 were waitlist control, and 9 of the waitlist control continued on to receive the actual treatment. We did see that the 15 who received the treatments, we saw significant reduction as a group with migraine frequency, which is what was most important for me because that's the number one clinical criteria
Hmm.
to see change when you look at clinical trials. So we saw a reduction by 7 days, which we thought was pretty good. And those
Average seven
changes,
days. Let's just because
yes,
I do want to dig into this. There are some that had
yes,
tremendously more, which is super
correct.
exciting. So we'll get into
Correct.
that. Yeah.
And yeah, and waitlist, we did not see differences, but the waitlist that received treatment, we saw significant reduction as well. So it allowed us, even with a very small study, it allows us to have high level of confidence, especially when we talked to those individuals. We knew them, and some of them actually contacted us even 2 years after the study ended, still letting us know how their lives have been changed. So
Oh
that
wow.
really helped
Must make you
us more
feel great.
confident
Yeah.
to want to explore the opportunity of doing much larger studies, which are actively pursuing. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's great. Can you tell us what these 8 weeks entailed? Like, so it was 2 hours per week. They get on a Zoom call. They had homework, I understand, in between. What kind of was, yeah, just kind of give us a flavor of what, obviously, EAET, but there was a lot more to that if I understood the protocol correctly.
Sure. So, first of all, before the treatment, we ensure to do a 1 hour interview with each participant to let them know what they're getting themselves into. Because EAT, at least in my opinion, is very, very intense intervention. It is a tough intervention emotionally. It requires people to face things that they might not want to face. And we want to make sure people were prepared to what the treatment is about. And we did a bit of a mini EAET exploration with each and every participant to ensure that they know what's going to happen. The first 2 sessions of the treatment are mostly psychoeducation, preparing the participants to the treatment and ensuring to socialize them with the treatment protocol, with the underlying principles of the treatment, ensuring that they do understand the treatment stance in terms of the mind-body connection. And starting session 2, we're starting to do a bit more experiential work. So an exercise we're doing is a preliminary fun exercises, we're actually asking people what kind of emotions do they think that they always wanted to express but never allowed themselves. And a lot of times anger comes into play. And so we do a little bit of a fun exercise, having everybody stand. We are standing as well as facilitators and okay, show us how do you, when you're angry, what does it look like? How does your body look like? How does your face look like? What kind of words you're using? And we encourage them to use words that they normally wouldn't use because that whole point is to make the unspoken spoken in the
Mm.
treatment. And with homework, we're allowing them to dive deep into correlating between their life experiences, the time that they got all sorts of symptoms in their life, not just migraine, some life themes that they might experience, like I have to be perfect in life, or I need to excel, or I need to take care of everybody, or I'm unlovable. Themes like that, and to start maybe starting to make connections, if such connection exists, maybe it doesn't between events that happen, life themes that were created due to those events, which might indicate attachment wounds or other components, and the occurrence of symptoms. And when people are starting to think about those, we delve deep into what events come into mind and without necessarily getting deep into the narrative of the event, we really focus on what sort of emotions came to you at that point. So if people report abuse or report any adverse event that caused them any maladaptive emotions, any emotions of guilt or shame or anger or whatever that may be, have them re-experience those emotions and provide them with the opportunity to express that emotion out right now here in a safe environment with supportive people in a way that they always may have wanted but were never allowed to because of culture, because of religion, because of their setting, because of their age, whatever that may be. So in essence, we're asking them to reconnect with some avoided experiences and help them relieve some of the needs and emotions that were there that were never expressed and, in our opinion, created an internal conflicts. A lot of people felt anger and they never allowed themselves to experience or express that. A lot of people felt the need to get a hug, to get love, to get affection from parents. They never express that in the way that we're allowing them in sessions. So most of the sessions are focused on that. Another important thing that we're doing, we're focused on secrets. We all
Mm,
carry all sorts of things that we've done that we might not be very proud of, things that we might feel shameful, and those take their toll. We invest energy in hiding things that we've done,
mm,
maybe hiding that from ourselves. That takes emotional energy. So in essence, we're giving people up also opportunity, and that's towards the end of the treatment, where people in a group are feeling a little more connected, a little more relatable to one another. And we're allowing them to explore whether there's anything in life that they have done that they might not be very proud of. We all have those, let's be honest.
mhm.
And express that in the group, and get the support of the group, the acceptance from the group that the notion that despite of what happened, you are accepted as who you are, which is a lot to many people. So we have a
Yeah.
lot of stories.
I don't know if I'm able to, and you can tell me if I'm not, but in the training, you came in on the last session in the EAET training and you showed a couple of videos trying to explain what happened in the group setting and how you run EAET in groups and that sort of thing. And one really interesting, fascinating thing really was the woman who had the secret that she came on to the call and she was like, I have had migraines all week long. I have felt horrible. I don't want to tell my secret. And she was just so upset about it. You handled it beautifully. And we're just like, this was an invitation to you. I don't know how long that clip was, but it wasn't longer than 5-10 minutes. She went from having so much angst about it, you saying this was an invitation, that's okay if that's what you decide not to. And then the little role play, you challenged her to come back to you and say, Dan, no, I'm not going to share my secret. And you had her do it again with more force. And then had the group, and that was the beauty of the group setting, to first challenge her a little bit, help her with this, to say, hey, I shared mine. I think it's not fair, maybe. Like, I think you should. And to have her practice to say, no, I'm not going to. And they then said what they thought about her not sharing. And it was all, I don't judge you. It's okay. Like, that's your prerogative. And, no worries. Everything just kind of softened. And that to me was one of those times where I just thought this worked to relieve tension within that woman's body and to physically change something
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
minutes.
I just want to make sure we clarify the actual participants who did this study. We did not show in the training the videos of them because that is confidential, HIPAA compliant. So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was a reenactment of something that really
Okay.
happened.
Thank
Uh,
you for saying so.
um,
What I
it,
love
it,
about you is
it-
even when I was asking about, can I show this slide or can I show which part of the results and different things, you are just so like stand up. I love that coming from a compliance background
yeah, yeah.
and the ethics side of it. Yeah.
Just,
Thank you
and
for,
we so much value all of our patients. We really want to make sure that their confidentiality
Yeah, yeah.
um, is maintained. But with that clip, that was something that happened. We had someone, and she admitted to be such a people pleaser. And all her life, she was a people pleaser, wanted to please others. And now when she was in treatment, she was trying to please me as a facilitator. And here I was coming with a request to find a secret and to express it in groups. She wanted to please me on one hand. On the other hand, she was like, but I don't want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So this conflict, she reported that she had migraines all week long because
Wow.
she didn't know what to do. That sort of conflicts in the model that we're using in this treatment is one of the things that we believe fuels danger signals such as chronic pain. And so what I wanted to do is to relieve that conflict and saying, hey, yes, I gave the invitation to share a secret, but if you really don't want to, you don't have to do that just because I asked you to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
that was an important point, I think, for
Yeah.
her. I actually wanted to support her in training her to be more assertive because she
Right.
was such a people pleaser to say, no, this is what I want. I'm not telling my secret despite you asking me to tell my secret, and no means no. So we
Mm-hmm.
helped her in the group kind of reinforce her self-efficacy and train her to be more assertive in saying, no, this is what I want and this is what I want to do because that was a completely new experience for her. She
Mm-hmm.
always was pleasing others, and here it's like a new experience that she needed to do something that she never did. And even after asserting herself, she still felt very anxious. Like, what would I think about her?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I thought that was an opportunity to maybe focus on strengthening another aspect that I thought was important for her
Mm-hmm.
well-being and that might also be related to her migraine.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting one. All right. I'm conscious of time. We need to get into the results, and this is the drum roll. Okay. So I have the slide. Do you want me to bring that up to
Sure.
maybe I people listening won't be able to see it. We can have this on the YouTube channel as well. So I have up, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, the grid essentially of the number of migraine days at baseline and post treatment and the results. So, can you talk to this slide and tell us the important
Yes.
bits?
Yes.
Thanks.
So our primary endpoint in this preliminary trial, again, I want to emphasize this is still preliminary, but our primary goal, besides the feasibility, we wanted to get some information about whether it changes the most important clinical outcome, which is looked at in clinical studies, which is migraine frequency. And what we've done that prospectively. We had people fill out headache diaries electronically each and every day for 30 days before the treatment and after the treatment. So I want to emphasize this was prospective. It's not that people recalled how many migraines they had. They filled that in each and every day, and we monitored that headache diaries are being filled. And out of the 30 days, most people filled all 30 days. We have some that filled 29 days. We have, I think, very few that only fill 28 days. No one missed more than 2 days in a month because we
Mhm.
had a clever system. So we can see on the graphs, on the upper graph, that migraine frequency for those individuals who received the treatment, the 15 individuals, we see significant reduction in their migraine frequency or number of migraine days a month. So that's why you have the three stars on top. So that's
Mhm.
before, that's the baseline. The dark blue and the light blue is the post treatment. And when you look at, and that's the EAET group, and on the right, you have the same two columns and under, over the WL, which is the waitlisted control, those who did not receive treatment, they just waited. And you can see that there is no significant difference between them. You can see a slight reduction. It wasn't significant. It was definitely not as much as the treatment.
Mhm.
I do want to say, and this is not in the slide, that those same wait list, those who did opt to receive the treatment, which is only 9 of the 15, we did see significant reduction afterwards with number of migraine days. The second slide is quality of life, just because quality of life is again another important measures that has been recommended by the American Headache Society, by there's several publications about clinical trials. So we did look at quality of life using the MSQ questionnaire, the migraine specific quality of life questionnaire. We see again the EAET, those who got the treatment, we saw a significant increase in quality of life, no change in the controls. Those were our, you know, primary outcomes, even though we had other outcomes. And I just want to show the raw data also because clinical studies are dirty, so to speak. I mean, it's not like everybody getting the same change. Some people get more, some people get less, some people don't change at all. So I want to emphasize in this table, you do see 3 people that did not show any change. You see some that showed moderate change, more than 30% reduction in migraine days, and you see some that really got significant changes. I will say that, and I know each and every of those individuals because I work with them, but out of the first 3 rows, the 3 that did not show any change, the first 2 actually missed half of the sessions. So we tend to think that if you miss the treatment, you might not see as much change.
Hmm. Hmm.
The third person actually was very interesting because she, at the last session, she knew that even though she didn't experience change, she was very clear about that she feels that the treatment is very helpful for her, but she did indicate that she would need much longer intervention. And that's also because I'm assuming that people who are listening to us may wonder, hey, well, why did some people get so much change? Some people didn't get any change. So again, in a clinical trial, you're never going to see, at least in my opinion, I don't think we're going to see that 100% of people are getting the same change. People are coming with a lot of history, different trauma experiences, different abilities of engaging with emotions, with avoided emotions, different experience with therapy. These are all factors that are important. And also, we did look at ACE score, Adverse Child Experience score. We got a lot that were having a very high ACE score, above 5, and those that were below 5. We couldn't find a correlation, meaning it doesn't mean that those with high ACE score received better results in the treatment or not. But again, this was a relatively small study, so correlation is almost we almost weren't able to do this correlation. So again, what we are seeing in general that 80% of the participant did have at least 30% reduction in migraine frequency, while 40% had very significant reduction in migraine frequency,
Yes.
which is more than 50%. So that's what we've seen.
Yeah. I mean, some had 15 days up to I
Yeah.
between 2 plus 2 with the ones that you were talking about at the beginning, 0, 0, and then up to
Yeah.
reduction of 15 days.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is half your month back. That's how I
Correct.
used to think of it. My average was about 17 a month. And when I
Yeah.
started reducing and I talk to clients and it's like, well, it's only like 1 or 2 or it's not fully gone. And I'm trying to say, look at the bigger picture here. You got 2 days back of your life outside of a dark room in a fetal position, writhing in pain. So it's, yeah, some of these numbers are staggering. And I know that you and I have spoken about this too in email and, about that this is a preliminary
Yes.
finding, more research needs to be done on it, et cetera, all that. But
Absolutely.
I can say, because I'm not the researcher and I'm just Karen Ash, but I can say that the impression that I have, and coming from pharma, that if, and yeah, I wanted you to explain the effect size, because that really matters in a trial. And something like this, it just points to this is significant. And a randomized controlled trial is gold standard of how you run a trial. So to me, in pharma, this would have been like funding gets pushed to this. We're going to have, you may not agree, but I really do feel like it would be, hey, this showed preliminary results. Let's put some more money into it. Let's figure it out. Because when you look at the CGRP, and I got to look at my notes, but the current most prescribed medication and preventatives, and you can, talk to this if you want, if you really disagree with me, but it reduced monthly migraine days by approximately 1.27 to 2.36 days over the placebo in large scale trials. And so this preliminary, again, EAET trial produced a net effect of more than double that in 8 weeks via telehealth with no side effects and no ongoing prescription cost. I mean, I really do. I'm excited about it. I can't wait for there to be more bigger trials but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, again, first of all, thank you for your enthusiastic support. I have to put my researcher
Caveats
hat,
to it. Yep.
and I first of
Calm
all,
down,
we did
Karen.
not calculate. No, I mean, we can't calculate effect size based on such small data.
Yeah.
Um, we don't have an effect size. Um,
Thought I had read
I
that.
do
That's where I'm
know, I
taking it from.
do.
Sorry.
I mean, compared to, there is and I want to maybe compare that to other psychological intervention, not medication, but there was a very big meta-analysis that came in 2025. I forgot the name of the first author. It starts with T, but I know that Dr. Don Buse was on it. And they did say that most psychological intervention, they reduced migraines by 1 to 2 days a month. We were able to see an average of 7, but again, I mean, as much as I want to be supportive, enthusiastic, I do need to be fair and just remind myself and remind also the audience that this is still very
It is
preliminary. Do
preliminary.
what we hope that we can replicate that in much larger studies. So I'm kind of like trying to keep my enthusiasm at bay because I do want to make sure this is also we're not jumping ahead of ourselves. So
And over promising. Yes, yes. Okay, I appreciate that. I am just looking at these numbers, and the person who reduced their monthly migraine days by 15 a month, or 10 and 14 and 6 and 6 and 12 and 3 and 10 and 6 and 6, it matters what you just
yeah.
did. So I really, yeah, I appreciate I want to talk about these numbers over here. 80% of the EAET participants had 30% or more reduction in monthly migraine days. 40% of the EAET participants had 50% or more reduction in monthly migraine days.
I pretty much think that everybody that got into our program got something of
Yeah.
use. And even those who did not get much change, they were very much aware of additional work that they need to do. So I hope, or I think based on the comments that we received, that it was impactful for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this work in general, I just see it as life skills and healings that are needed for, when my mother passed this past fall, right after the Boulder conference, actually, I went home and she passed. And Mark Lumley was
Sorry.
in my
Sorry.
head because he was talking about, thank you, about these conflicting emotions. And and I kept thinking, yes, this is what is happening to me right now. I'm happy that she passed because she had Alzheimer's, but I am so conflicted right now that of how I'm feeling. And so all these different things, or the emotions that were able to be released, or the processing of stress in a different way that I have, my personality that I've looked at, like not just EAET, but all the different things that we work on, is shaping you in a better way, essentially. I don't know if better is the right word, but in a
Different way.
for me, it was a healthier experience going forward. And I took so many of my learnings from all the different techniques and tools and stuff like that. Even nervous system regulation, I was doing so many different things, going through just a life event that had nothing to do with the migraine, nothing to do with that helps you cope better. Yeah. So I had posted this in my Facebook group, and Lottie from that group had the question, and I think you've already answered it. I wanted to just give a shout out to her because that was a very good question of seeing the big difference of success rates. But you're right that everybody is so different and coming into it from so many different angles and having such a different life path that it is
Correct.
that.
And again, when we like during the treatment, you can see that first of all, people are coming with very different experiences and adverse life events. Some came with really very tough and horrific stories. Some came with relatively, I don't know if normal is the right word. Maybe normal is not the right word,
Nobody's
but
normal.
not yeah, but there were no events that were truly alerting. However, they did experience some adversity in their lives. So there was a lot of differences. We also need to remind ourselves this was an 8 session protocol because that's a study.
Mhm.
Clinically, we're not limited by 8 sessions. So clinically, there's much more work that we can do with processing of emotions, with processing of those adverse life events and connecting to needs. So people came with very different backgrounds of abilities to connect emotionally, to define emotion, to name emotions.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, People came with different experiences in therapy. So these are all factors that come into play. I do want to say that because at the end of this, at the 8th session, both the participants and the therapists, all of us felt some frustration because we all knew that there's much more work that needs to be done, but it's a study. The study has to end.
Mm.
So the participants themselves kept asking, well, okay, I got that and it seemed to be helpful. How do I keep doing that? And as therapists, we kind of felt like, darn it, we want to keep going. We want to keep working with those people. We connected with them. So that was also something that occurred. And again, those results reflect 8 sessions, very strict kind of protocol. So of course we're going to see variability
Mhm.
in participation. We're currently we're expanding that. So we're actually doing a longer group now. We're starting next month, like a 6 month group with people with migraine. We're using EAET, and I don't know, we want to see how that maybe affect the participants. So,
Okay.
but there's more work that we need to do.
But the preliminary results are fantastic.
Thank you.
Can we say that? Am I allowed to say that?
Sure. You're definitely allowed to say that. So,
I'm very conscious of time right now. I wanted to just clarify one thing. You had mentioned that the EAET was very intense and that you wanted to make sure people were aware of this. I just want to say for the audience, as far as going through 8 sessions, 2 hours long in this kind of container that you were in, if you're not in that necessarily, if you're just one on one with a therapist or if you're with a trained professional that knows how to work with EAET, you can do it in a longer time. I guess my point is it doesn't have to be so heavy though, does it? Alf?
again, I think there are several components to it. Number one, I think that the essence of the work is identifying avoided emotions and a lot of time needing to reveal defense mechanisms, defenses, avoidances, and let the client know, hey, you're using a defense or you're avoiding, and so forth and so on. That in itself may not be very
You have to be,
pleasant.
I guess you have to be
However,
open, right? You have to be
yes,
open and
yeah.
willing to dig into some of the.
Sure, sure. But of
Stuff.
course, the speed or the amount of pushing on defenses or the amount of preparation, of course, can be different depending on the individual. So I want to ensure that people who are listening to us, this is not like you're going through such a horrible experience. Absolutely not. On the contrary, this is a very supportive treatment. It is challenging in the effect that it requires people to face things that ordinarily they might not face. But I mean, if we look at it differently, when we go to the gym, when we want to strengthen a muscle, we need to press very, increasing weights. And at the moment, when we go to a workout or a gym, that might not feel very good, but afterwards was like, oh, thank God, I feel so much better. I'm glad I've done that. I think that's similar. So we might not be working on
Hmm.
physical muscle, but we are working on an emotional muscle. And to strengthen that, maybe we also need to increase the weight so that the muscle can grow. That's kind of an analogy that maybe could
Okay,
help
I
there.
like that. I like that. When you first said that, I was scared that people would think, "Oh, what does he mean that it's."
No, no, no.
But
I
okay,
never had
I feel
anybody
better
that
with that.
ran away from the treatment, say, I'll never do that again. On the contrary,
And
one
people
of the
came
things
back,
that I
right?
think that not only
Wanting
came
more.
back at the end of the treatment, people wanted more. We had actually one participant in the group that she was contemplating on leaving. We encouraged her to talk about it in the group. And at the end, she decided to stay. And at the end, she said, I'm so happy I decided to stick with that. So we never had any person in the treatment that just in the middle just said, this is not for me, this is too hard, I can't do it, and left. We did not have that experience.
Hmm.
We did have people that at the beginning thought that it might be for them or didn't have time, or so we did have dropout before, not a lot, but we had some, but not when the treatment already started. So.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, that clarifies things. And what I need to figure out is try to tell people where they can find a therapist that is trained in EAET because Dr. Schubner and Lumley don't have a practitioner directory yet. They are working on something like that, but that's something where maybe I can do another session on that. But are you taking private clients at this point or?
Yes. So
Okay.
actually, when I started doing that work, I did that as a researcher. And it was very clear that I need to work with licensed practitioners to even during the research, but it was also clear that I want to keep doing that. So I went back to school. I didn't think that I
Yeah.
would at my age or after all the work that all the schooling I've done, but I did get back to school and finishing my clinical mental health counseling degree. So I am taking private clients right now. I do work in Utah, so unfortunately I can't take clients outside of Utah, but I do know that Dr. Shubiner, Dr. Lumley are training many, many practitioners worldwide. And so, the
And I am
list
trained. I should
is going
probably
to,
put a plug in for
yes, you
myself
also
that
trained. Yes.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we
yeah.
have more and more people that are
Yeah.
getting trained. And so hopefully EAT can be offered to more and more people worldwide. That's
Yeah.
our hope.
And I think another place to find people in directories is the ATNS because they have a directory and then some people have put that they're EAET or PRT trained and that sort of thing. So that might be a good one. I think it's symptomatic.me. I'll put it in the show notes, / practitioner directory.
Yeah.
But thank you so, so much. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to just end on?
Well, if I may, just one thing, because I am working with the Danielle Byron Henry Migraine Foundation here in Salt Lake City, which are phenomenal family. They lost their daughter, Danielle, for migraine. She took her life because she couldn't bear
Mm,
having more migraines. A very sad story, but this incredible and brave family found the strength to create a foundation that they call Shine Her Light to shine Danielle's light. They're doing such important work in the migraine field, and we are offering free resources, free trainings. I'm actually the one that does a lot of those trainings. in providing resources, biofeedback training, forgiveness for migraine. We're doing a lot of that. So I highly encourage people worldwide to access the Danielle Byron Henry Migraine Foundation at Salt Lake City. They have a website with a lot of information. Maybe if you can put that in the
Put that
chat,
in the
that'll be
link. Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
I think it's daniellefoundation.org. That's the website. I think that we really want to reach as many people as we can worldwide who are living with migraine, who are feeling desperate, who are feeling helpless, who are feeling hopeless, who think that there's no solution. We want to reach those people to
Hmm.
say there is a community. They are people who care. We care. We
Yeah.
want to help. And we just through you, through everybody that has attended the courses, that are listening to the podcast, we want to reach out so that no one with migraine would feel lost. So that is maybe kind of my own personal
I love that. What
view,
a
because
great
I
way
feel
to
I
end
feel
on.
very connected to people with migraine, and I love all the people I've ever worked with, and I really hope that this message would reach out to as many people who are currently living with migraine as we can.
Hmm.
And thank
Hmm.
you, Karen, for
Thank
doing this
you.
incredible.
I so appreciate you coming on and talking about this and all your other expertise that you shared and for all the work that you're doing, especially with the foundation and everything else. So, yes, let's hope that this reaches the right people and they feel that they are supported.
Definitely.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you for everybody who's listening.